Hey, in this video I'm going to go over the 2023 May Math SAT. This is going to be the no calculator section. The calculator section is going to be my next video, so stay tuned for that if you want. But yeah, a couple things you need to know is that you need to know how to use these formulas down here in the SAT, because they're given to you, but they don't tell you how to use them or when to use them or any of that type. So you need to kind of understand what they are and how to use them. So, and also what I would recommend is for you to go over this and time yourself. Your goal should be 20 minutes or 25 minutes because that's the length of the test. So yeah, time yourself for 25 minutes, see how much you can get done, and see what level you're at, and then look at all the questions in general to have a good look of them before you come and watch me do them, because it will help you understand, and what I do is going to make more sense if you do it yourself first. Okay, well, yeah, question number 1. First we have a graph here, and then it shows the possible combinations of 3 credit and 4 credit classes a student can enroll in to complete an associate's degree program. So basically a combination of 3 credit and 4 credit classes lets you graduate, I guess. But yeah, so the question is, based on the graph, if a student enrolls in 8 3-credit classes, so 8 3-credit classes, how many 4-credit classes will the student need to enroll to complete? Basically, if you have 8 3 credits, how many 4 credit courses do you need to take? Let's look at this dot over here. If you take 8 3 credit courses, then you need to take 9, because this is a 9 over here, you need to take 9 4 credit courses. So the answer is 9. It is that easy, you just need to read the graph. That's it. Question number 2, the graph of a linear function f is shown. So in general, if you have a linear function, we know that for any linear function, it has the form of y is equal to mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So in this case, the slope is 1. As you can see, it's not -1, it's 1. So you already know that anything with a negative x is going to be wrong, because -1 would look something like this. It would be going this way. That would be negative x. X is like we see here. So yeah, that's x. And m is 1, so that's it. And then for b, what is the y-intercept? It is at 1. You can see it here, but the function or the graph crosses the y-axis at 1, so it's going to be b is equal to 1. So over here it is plus 1, and over here it's -1. We want the positive, so the answer is A. Once again, very simple. You just have to use the very basic definition of a linear equation. Next question on this page, question number 3, the graph of the polynomial function f, where y is equal to f of x, has x-intercepts at -6, 0, and 6, 0. Which of the following must be true? Okay, so first let's do kind of a sketch. So we have an x-intercept here at 6, 0, and we have one at -6, 0. I'm going to write it. So -6, 0, and 6, 0. Okay, so what we know is that if you plug in any value of x on this x-axis, I'm going to do it in black, but if you plug in any value of x on this line, the value of y is 0. So if you plug in -6 in here, the value is 0. That is correct, because the value of y here is 0. In all the other ones, the value is not 0. It's like you saying there's an x-intercept somewhere here. That doesn't make sense, because that does not cross the x-axis. The x-axis is down here. This is the x-axis. So this would be wrong. So all these 3 are wrong. That means the answer is A. So that's it for this page. Question number 4. So same thing. We got 2 equations, and then we need to solve for x and y. So first what we can do is kind of try to replicate and have more similarities. So in the first one, we have y is equal to something. Let's do that in the second question. So we would have -5x is equal to 21 plus y. That's the first step, because we want y to be positive. So the first step is to make it positive, and which we did here. And then to get rid of the 21, we can write this as y is equal to -5x minus 21. All I did was I subtracted 21 from both sides over here, and I got it to be there instead. Okay, so now let's actually solve them, but before we do that, I'm going to actually number these. So this is equation number 1, and this is equation number 2. Okay, now I'm going to rewrite them here actually so that we have more space. So y is equal to 4x plus 6 and y is equal to negative 5x minus 21. Okay, if we actually solve these, let's subtract both equations. So equation 1 minus equation 2. So 1 minus 2. This will give us 0 is equal to 4x minus negative x is 9x, because two negatives make a positive. 6 minus negative 21 is plus 27, because once again, two negatives make a positive. So we know that this is now true. Let's solve it. So let's bring 27 to the other side. It would be negative 27, and divide both sides by 9. So x is equal to negative 3. So we just found x, and if you look here and all of these, when is x negative 3? In A. So we are done, but we can still check our answer to get kind of negative 6. So let's do the exact same thing, but instead let's solve for y. So if we know that x is negative 3, let's put it into equation 1. So y is equal to 4x plus 6, but x is negative 3, so y is equal to 4 times negative 3 plus 6, and then y is equal to negative 12 plus 6, which is negative 6. So yes, we are correct. This is a way to check your answer, but we already found the answer from the first step. The second step would have been useful if we had two negative 3s. So if two options, let's say this was A, and B was instead negative 3 and 5, then this would be wrong. So we would have to use the second step to find that out. But in this question, we were lucky that there was only one negative 3 in the question, so it is the only correct answer. Okay, so that's question number 4. Question number 5 is super easy. It's absolute value. So the absolute value of x minus 10 is 0. First, we know that to kind of get rid of the absolute value sign, we have to split it off into two branches, a positive answer and a negative answer. So first, we would have x minus 10 is equal to positive 0, and then x minus 10 is equal to negative 0. But since this is 0, you can't really have negatives and positive for zeros. These are the exact same. So let's get rid of this subtraction 1. We don't need that because it's not going to give us any new information. So if we solve this, we should get the answer for x. So let's solve it. X is equal to 10. That's it. And we are done. So the answer is C. Question number 6. Q is equal to S times R minus 1 squared. And then the question says, which equation gives R in terms of Q and S? So basically, solve for R when it is greater than 1. So yeah, just solve for R and we should get some answer. Well, yeah, let's try that. First, divide both sides by S. We're going to get Q over, I'm going to write that again. Q over S is equal to R minus 1 squared. And then to get rid of the square sign, square root both sides, we're going to have the square root of Q over S. Let's try that again. Q over S is equal to R minus 1, and then add 1 to both sides. So R is equal to root Q over S plus 1. So the answer for this is A. Okay, we are done. Let's move on to question number 7. In the relationship between variables x and y, each increase of 1 in the value of x decreases the value of y by 2. When x is 0, y is 5. Which equation represents the relationship? We know that all these are linear just by looking at them because all the x's are the power of 1 over here. So all these are linear. And we also know the equation for any linear function is y is equal to mx plus b. M in this case is a slope, and b is the y-intercept, which we can just find later on. Okay, but to find the slope, we know that it says here, for each increased value of x, we get decrease of y value by 2. So we rise over 1. In this case, the rise is negative 2 because we go down in the value of y by 2. And then run is 1 because x is 1. For every kind of change in y by 2, we get a change in x of 1. So this is our slope, but this is also equal to negative 2. So m is equal to negative 2. We already know that it's going to be either C or B, so let's cross out A and B because they have slopes of negative 1/2, which is wrong. Okay, so we got negative 2. Now let's plug in the value that we got. This is a point, 0, 5. It's a point on the function. So let's use that. We know that y is going to be equal to negative 2x plus b. In this case, x is 0, y is 5. So 5 is equal to negative 2 times 0 plus b. And then if you solve this, b is equal to 5. And we are done. So D. because b is 5. Another explanation to this, even easier, usually if you have a graph, so I'm going to draw it up here, if you have some sort of function, the y-intercept happens when x is 0. So in this case, we had a point 0, 5. If you plug it in here, you'd have had this, and that tells you that the y-intercept is there because it's 0, 5. That's just where a point is, and that's also what b is. B is always going to be the y value at the y-intercept. So that's b, and that's also why it's sometimes called as a y-intercept, because it stands for y-intercept. But yeah, so that's question 7. Okay, question number 8. It says an architect is asked to construct an opening in a wall in the shape of a parabola. The blueprint of an architect's design is shown. So, in other words, this is all, to be honest, garbage. You don't need to read this at all, and the question would have been the exact same if it was without it. It's just there to kind of confuse you, to make you read more, and to just test your patience, I guess. But yeah, and then the formula of the actual parabola over here is given by y is equal to negative x times x minus 8 over 4. Not 4, but over k. This is kind of the most important thing in the question, because that's the formula of the function, or how you get the parabola. And then you are told that k is a constant and can be used to determine the height y. Okay, whatever, it's a function. So y is obviously going to be here. Once again, this is mostly garbage as well. And then distance x, garbage, garbage, garbage. Okay, basically, the question is asking you to find the value of k. So, if you have this parabola and you want to find some constant in it, first you need to find y and x, plug those in, and solve for k. So an easy point that we have over here is 4, 8. We have this because we are told by these hints that it's at 4, 8. So what we can do is, I'm going to rewrite that here. So y is equal to negative x times x minus 8 over k. So now plug in 4, 8. This should equal to 8 is equal to negative 4 times 4 minus 8 over k. And then 8 is equal to negative 4 times negative 4 is 16, so 16 over k. And then k is equal to 16 over 8, which is 2. So that is your answer, and we are done. Once again, in some of these questions, you might notice that you're going to have a lot of these like filler words. You don't need to read those because they are a waste of time. But yeah, you can read them once to kind of make sure that there's no important information in them. But don't stress too much about them because they really mean nothing. Okay, question number 9. It says an isosceles right triangle has a hypotenuse of length 4 inches. What is the perimeter in inches of this triangle? Okay, so 2 pieces of important information here. First, it's an isosceles right triangle. That's super, super important because we need to know that to kind of draw it. And then we know that the hypotenuse is 4 inches. So pretty simple. First, we draw the isosceles right triangle. So it would be 45, 45, 90, because it's a right angle, and then isosceles means that the other two sides are equal, so 90 divided by 2 is 45. After that, we know that the hypotenuse is 4 inches, so the hypotenuse is the longer side, which in this case is this one, which is also 4 inches over here. Okay, after that, pretty simple. Now what we have to do is find the perimeter of this. But you might ask, okay, how would we find these two sides? The answer is super simple. First, if you draw the basic version of this triangle, you would know that this is root 2, this is 1, this is 1. And then these are the angles, 90, 45, 45. But yeah, this is on the front page of the SAT. It's the very basic version of this triangle. It's a special triangle, so you can even memorize the ratios, which is what I did. But you don't have to, because sometimes it's given to you. But yeah, so usually, to go from this to this, you would multiply by root 2. And to go back, you would divide by root 2. And we're going to do the exact same thing here. So to go back, we're going to divide by root 2 because it's a ratio. This is always going to be the case. So divide by root 2 on both to get the answer. So this would be 4 over root 2, and this would be 4 over root 2 as well. Okay, so that's kind of it almost. We found what each side is. Now we have to add everything up. So the perimeter of this triangle, first I'm going to erase this because you don't need it anymore. But the perimeter of the triangle would be 4 plus 4 over root 2 plus 4 over root 2. Now you might say, okay, this is definitely wrong because it does not match any of these answers. Well, you would be wrong actually because it does. You just have to rewrite it in some other way. But yeah, so what you would do here is first add these fractions. This would be 4 plus 8 over root 2. Pretty simple so far. And then after that, let's rationalize this fraction. I'm going to put a link in my description for the rationalizing video that I've already done. But yeah, basically multiply this by root 2 over root 2 to rationalize it. You would have 4 plus 8 root 2 over 2, which is 4 plus 4 root 2, because 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that's how we got 4 plus 4 root 2. And we're done. So it's C, and it is correct. We're done. Let's move on to question number 10. How many solutions does the equation this has or have? So once again, to find the number of solutions, just solve it and see how many you get. So expand the first bracket. You would get 4x minus 8 is equal to negative 2x minus 8. Okay, now let's kind of get rid of both negative 8s because they go away if you add 8 to both sides, kind of like that. And then you would have 4x is equal to negative 2x, so add 2x to both sides. You'd have 6x is equal to 0, in other words, x is equal to 0, and this is only one solution, so we are done. So exactly one solution, that's it. Because there is no, we didn't get an answer like 0, comma, 1, 2, 3, dot, dot, dot. This would be infinitely many solutions because there's too many of them. But for this one, we only had one solution, so the answer is obvious. Exactly one solution, and we're done. Question number 11, it says, line K is tangent to the circle with center C at point A as shown. What is the slope of line K? Okay, pretty simple again. Center over here is C, and let's connect these two dots, because you should know this, but if you have a tangent line, in this case K, a tangent line is always going to be perpendicular to the radius. So this is the radius, and this is K. They're always going to be perpendicular. In other words, the slope is going to be perpendicular to each other. But yeah, so first let's find the slope of R. How would we find that? We have 2 points already. So we have this point, and we have this point. Rise over run, so M is equal to rise over run. So what we could do is rise is going to be negative 4 minus negative 5, and then the run is going to be equal to negative 5 minus negative 7. If you evaluate this, you'd have negative 4 plus 5, which is 1, and then negative 5 plus 7, which is 2. So 1/2 is the slope of R. So the M of R is 1/2. I'm going to write it down here again to make it look nicer. But yeah, MR is 1/2. Now we have to find MK, the slope of K. Since we already said it's perpendicular, there's a very cool trick in math. Basically, flip the fraction and make it negative. So right now it's positive 1/2. So since it's positive, we're going to make it negative and then flip the fraction. So instead of 1 over 2, you'd have 2 over 1. This is it. So it's equal to negative 2. That's it. So we are done. And the answer is A. And by the way, so what I did here is called the negative reciprocal. The reciprocal is what you flip. That's called the reciprocal. And then to make it negative, you just call it negative. So negative reciprocal is how you find any perpendicular slope in general. Not just for this question, but if you have two perpendicular slopes, if you do the negative reciprocal of each one, you get the other one. So that's it for question for question number 11. Let's move on to question number 12. But yeah, here we have a complicated looking function, but it's easier than you think because you don't even have to evaluate it. You just have to figure out what goes into the function. But yeah, okay, so the function R gives blah blah blah. What? Okay, once again, this is all garbage so far. All you have to know is that this is a function. That's it so far. Okay, and then once again, garbage expressed number of points, whatever, we don't care. But yeah, here we have some valuable information. It says T is a number of years. That's kind of the one thing that you need to know. Usually you want to know the names of variables to understand what's happening, but you don't need to know what the function does or what it's meant for, because that's science stuff. That's not math. We don't care about that in here. So after that, after knowing that T is a number of years, so T is number of years. That's all we need to know for now. Let's continue reading. So the player has participated in professional... Okay, yeah, so T is a number of years. Whatever player has participated in the professional chess tournaments. Okay, and then which of the following represents the predicted average rating of a player who has just entered their first professional chess tournament? Okay, so like we said, T is a number of years. And if this person is playing their first ever professional chess tournament, that means T is going to be 0. They just started. Their timer started now because they are beginning to play the first tournament now. So T is 0. That means we're going to find R of T. R of 0, and that's B. So it's as easy as that. All this garbage and all this kind of filler up here, you don't need to write, you don't need to know, you don't need to read, because it tells you what the function does, but we don't really care about that. So that's it for question number 12. Let's go to question number 13. So Alice took 60 minutes to complete a task on her first trial. The time it took Alice to complete the task decreased by 10% of the previous time for each additional trial. Okay, so basically she kept getting faster, in other words. So first trial, I'm going to do it in red. But yeah, so first trial, she got 60 minutes. Second trial, she decreased by 10%. So a negative 10% or a change of value to get her second, and then so on every time she did something to get her fifth. So this is going to be third, fourth, and fifth. And the question is asking us to find the fifth trial. So that's how we know we should stop at the fifth. But yeah, so to find out kind of the time it took for second, because to get to the fifth, you have to find second, then third, then fourth, then fifth. You can't just jump from first to fifth. You have to do it in an order. So to get from first to second, first you have to know that if you decrease by 10%, you are left with 90%. That's something in math, you have to look at the opposites. So if you take away 10%, you are left with 90%. That's the leftover time that she took on her second trial. So now you have to multiply. 90% is the exact same as 0.9. So 0.9 times 60. Okay, this first one is easy to do mentally, but 9 times 6 is 54. And then if you add a 0, it becomes 540. But then we take away a 0 because this is 0.9, so it becomes 54 again. So this is 54 for her second trial. So I'm going to write it here. Second trial took 54. Okay, now let's do the exact same thing to find her third trial. So it would be 54 times 0.9 again, because she still decreased 10% time from this. So you cannot multiply by like 80% because that's wrong. It doesn't make sense. You have to decrease this time by 10%, not decrease the original time by 80% because that's wrong. Okay, so multiply by 0.9 again. What you get is 9 times 4 is 36, so 6 on the bottom, 3 on top. And then 9 times 5 is 45, plus 3 is 48. And then since the question had one decimal place, the answer is also going to have one decimal place. So for her third trial, she got 48.6. So let's write that down here. 48.6. That's her third trial. Let's do the exact same thing for the fourth trial. We would have 48.6 times 0.9. This will give you 9 times 6, which is 54. So 4 on the bottom, 5 on top. 9 times 8, which is 72. Plus 5 is 77, so 7 on the bottom, 7 on top. And then 9 times 4 is 36, plus 7 is 43. And then since the question had 2 decimal places, the answer would have 2 decimal places as well. So the answer is 43.74. Let's write that down here. So 43.74. That's it. Okay, and then for the fifth one, the last one, the answer that we actually want, you would multiply the same thing by 0.9. So I'm going to do it here, 43.74 times 0.9. Pretty simple. 9 times 4 is 36, 6 on the bottom, 3 on top. 9 times 7 is 63, plus 3 is 66, so 6 on the bottom, 6 on top. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 6 is 33, so 3 on the bottom, 3 on top. 9 times 4 is 36, plus 3 is 39, so that goes here. And then since the question had 3 decimal points, the answer is also going to have 3 decimal points. So 39.366, and then that's it. That is your final answer because that is the fifth time. And now it says approximately how many minutes will it take Alice to complete the task on her fifth trial. So we know that some answers are going to be close. It's not going to be spot on. It's not going to be the exact answer. It's going to be close. So what's the closest to 39.366? It's 39. Obviously, and you can round to even find that, but yeah, so it's 39, and that's your final answer. And once again, don't make the mistake of multiplying by 0.9, then 0.8, then 0.7, because that's wrong. You would be multiplying the original timing, but it says here that it took 10% decrease of her previous time. So if it's always compared to the previous time, you have to find it one by one. in other words, what we did here, actually, if you want to put this on a calculator, it would be 60 times 0.9 to the power of 1, 2, 3, 4. So the power of 4. Because we did it 4 times. We decreased it 4 times to get to the final answer. But yeah, so 0.9 each time gives you each trial, and then doing it 4 times gives you the 5th trial automatically in one step. But in this case, we do not have a calculator, so we cannot just plug in this and get an answer. But yeah, so that's how we do it, using actual long multiplication, and we get an answer. So let's move on to the next question, question number 14. Okay, for this one we have 2 inequalities, and it says, in which of the following tables are all the values of x and the corresponding values of y solutions to the system of inequalities shown? Okay, basically it's asking you which of these tables have correct values, which of them are correct. So let's start checking. For the first one we have a value of -2, -8. That's a point. I'm gonna write it on red, but yeah, -2, -8. That's the point that we are checking works for both inequalities. It can't just be one inequality, it has to be both inequalities. So let's check that. The left side of the inequality would be y, so in other words it would be -8. That's the left side. For the right side, it would be 2/5x plus 3, so 2/5. In this case, x is -2, so -2 plus 3. So this will give you -4/5 plus 3, which is equal to 2.2. Is -8 less than 2.2? Yes. So far, this is correct. The first point exists on the first inequality only. Now we have to check it for the second inequality as well, because it said it has to match both inequalities. So yeah, so we're done the first one. Let's now do the second one. This would be left side again, left side, right side. In this case, the left side is also y, so a -8. For the right side, it's 1/2 x minus 6. 1/2 x is going to be 1/2 times -2 minus 6. This would be 1, or -1 minus 6, which is -7. Is -8 greater than -7? No, this is wrong. So we know that since the second inequality is wrong, A has to be wrong. Okay, now let's move on to B. But before we actually do something that is a waste of time, let's look at what we found in A. So we found that -2, -8 is wrong. That means since -2, -8 is also here, it's going to give us the exact same answers, which is also wrong. So A and B are both wrong, because -2, -8 is a wrong point that does not exist in this system of inequalities. Okay, so once again, since one of these is wrong and it exists in both A and B, we already know they're both wrong. We don't have to waste time checking them both. So they are wrong. Let's move on to something else. So now let's check C. I'm going to erase all this now because we don't need it. Okay, but yeah, so usually you don't want to erase it, but I don't have space here, so I'm doing it. But you can do it if you want, it doesn't really matter. Okay, but yeah, so left side again, left side, right side. In this case, we are looking at -2, 3. It's the point over here. So left side is going to be 3, because that's y. Right side is going to be 2/5x plus 3. So 2/5 times -2 plus 3, and that is 2.2. Is 3 less than 2.2? No. Okay, this is wrong, so C must be wrong, because this is the condition of the question. It has to be less than. The left side has to be less than the right side, but that did not happen, so it's a wrong answer. Let's move on to D. Even though so far, like, I can confidently say that D is the right answer because all of these are wrong, but you still have to check your answer just to make sure you didn't mess up somewhere else. So let's do that now. You would get, first point is -2, 2. So first, let's erase this again. But yeah, the left side in this case is going to be 2. Right side is going to be 2/5 times -2 plus 3, which is 2.2. Is 2 less than 2.2? That is correct. So far, the first inequality works for this point that we have here. Okay, next inequality, let's do this for the second inequality. So right side is going to be 2 again. Left side is going to be 2. Right side is going to be 1/2 x minus 6. So 1/2 times -2 minus 6. 1/2 times -2 is -1 minus 6. This is -7. Is 2 greater than -7? Yes. So let's put another check mark here because both inequalities work. Now let's erase this work because once again, we don't have space. Let's erase this stuff. But yeah, so the first set of points works. Now let's check the second point. So 0 and -3. In this case, the left side is -3. And then right side is 0 for x. So 2 over 5 times 0 plus 3, which is just 3. Is -3 less than 3? That is correct. So let's put a check mark. That's the first inequality done. Okay. Next inequality, left side is going to be -3 again. Right side is going to be 1/2 times 0 plus, -6. It's going to have -6. Is -3 greater than -6? Yes. So let's put another check mark, and we are done this as well. Now let's move on to the last point for this question. We have 4 and 3. So left side is 3. Right side is 2 over 5 times 4 plus 3. So 2 over 5 times 4 plus 3. This is going to be 8 over 5 plus 3, which is 4.6. So that is 3 less than 4.6. Yes, this is correct. So let's put a check mark here. Okay, and then the last check of this question. Left side is going to be 3 again. Right side is going to be 1 over 2 times 4 minus 6. So I'm going to rewrite that actually. But yeah, times 4 minus 6. This would be 4 over 2 minus 6, which is 2 minus 6, which is -4. Is 3 greater than -4? Yes. So let's put a check mark here as well. And since every test scenario passed for this question, we know we are correct, and the answer is D. Once again, I already knew the answer was D based on the fact that we knew all the other ones were wrong, but you still have to check your answer just to make sure that you didn't make a mistake somewhere up here. Okay? But yeah, that's question 14. Question 15. This is another difficult one, it seems like, because we have a lot of exponents. But yeah, it says, which of the following is equivalent to root 32 times the 5th root of 64? Okay. First, we analyze the answers. You should always do this before doing any exponent questions. So look at the answers, look at what you have. So we see that all the bases over here are 2. So it will be a good idea to convert the bases of the question to become 2 as well. So this would be, instead of root 32, we know that 32 is equal to 2 to the power of 5, and 64 is equal to 2 to the power of 6. So instead of root 32, we would have root of 2 to the power of 5. And then instead of 5th root of 64, we would have the 5th root of 2 to the power of 6. Okay, that's what we have so far. And then after that, we know that for any radical, or for any root, since this is the square root or the second root, we can bring that 2 as a fraction in the denominator. So what I mean is this. This would be 2 to the power of 5 over 2. The 5 stays, but then since this is a square root, it is the second root, we can write that 2 as a denominator in this fraction. So that's that one. Let's do the exact same for this one. This would be 2 to the power of 6 over 5, because this is the 5th root, so 5 would be on the bottom. That's how radicals work. And then after that, since you are multiplying both, you add the exponents. So 5 over 2 plus 6 over 5, you would get, common denominator, you get 25 over 10 plus 12 over 10. This is 37 over 10. So after that, now we know that this is equal to 2 to the power of 37 over 10. That's what we have so far. Okay, let's pause here because we are done simplifying. Let's see what we need to do now. Okay, so first, if you notice, all of them have 7s or 10s as a root, but we have a denominator. So let's get rid of that denominator and make it a root. This would be the 10th root of 2 to the power of 37. Okay, we're getting somewhere, because now we know that since this is the 10th root, both answers with a 7th root are wrong. So now we know that A is wrong and C is also wrong. Now if you want to guess, you can happily guess with 2 options. It's 50% chance of getting it right, but we can still find the answer because we're almost done. But yeah, now, this is the hardest part of the question. Once again, if you want to guess, you can guess, but you should probably not do that. We have B and D. If you notice, they both have some type of constant. We have an 8 or a 6. So now what we can do is figure out a way to split this. But we can notice something else is that they both have an exponent of 7 on the 2. Right now we have an exponent of 37. So we are definitely wrong about what we have right now. We need to change it up a bit. So what we can do is split them up. This would be the 10th root of 2 to the power of 30 times 2 to the power of 7. This works because when you multiply, you add exponents. So this would give us back 37, and we also got the 7 that we wanted because both answers have 7s here. So once again, let me repeat what I did. I split them up this way because I want a 7 in my answer because it would match up with this one. So if you have a 7, you are getting closer to the answer, so that's why I kept the 7. But then if you have a 7, this has to be 30. So that kind of happened automatically. I didn't plan that one. I only planned the 7, and the 30 came automatically with it. Okay, now we do notice that the answers only have one root. We don't have double like what we have right now, so somehow we need to get rid of this 2 to the power of 30. So let's bring it outside. We would have the 10th root of 2 to the power of 30 times the 10th root of 2 to the power of 7. We would have these two. After that, okay, so now let's pause for a second. Compare two things. We have this over here, which is the same as both of these two. Okay, so in my opinion, which is, I'm probably right, let's not change that anymore because we got what we need in the answer. So if we touch it again, it's a bad idea, but this is going to stay as is. Let's not touch it anymore. Let's try make this into some type of constant, either 8 or 6. You might ask, oh, okay, how do you do that? This is the part where you need experience to be able to do this, but the only way you can actually solve this question is by converting it back to a fractional exponent. This would be 2 to the power of 30 over 10 times 10th root of 2 to the power of 7. I know this because I can already notice that 30 over 10 gives you 3, which is a nice exponent. So this would be 2 to the power of 3 times the 10th root of 2 to the power of 7. And we know that 2 to the power of 3 is 8, so this would be 8 times the 10th root of 2 to the power of 7. And let's check our answer. That matches D, so we know D is correct. And we are done. But once again, to get from this point to this point, this requires experience. You kind of have to do a lot of practice to be able to see that. If you don't do practice, you would not be able to see it and you would probably get the answer wrong. So there's no actual explanation to why I did it. I just knew that was a step to get the right answer because I've done questions like it before. I knew that this is a common trick that is available on these type of questions. So you kind of just have to practice and wish or hope that you see a trick that you've seen before on this type of test, but there's no other way of memorizing this. You just have to kind of practice and make sure that you know it. Okay, well, yeah, that's it for question number 15. Question number 16 now. So line K is shown in the XY plane. So we have it over here, line K. Line J, not shown, is parallel to line K. What is the slope of line J? Okay, this is the easiest question that might be on this exam. But if two things are parallel, they have the exact same slope. We don't even need to see J, because if you find the slope of K, it is going to be the slope of J. They are the exact same because that's how parallel lines work. So how do you find the slope of K? Once again, slope is equal to rise over 1. This is something you have to memorize because it's the most common thing that we've seen on the exam so far. Almost 5 questions had it. So it's a good sign that you need to memorize it. But yeah, so rise in this case would be 1 because we only went up by 1. So 1. Run is 5. We went to the right by 5. So 1 over 5. And that's your answer. That's the slope. So the slope of J, which we cannot see, is 1 over 5. Because the slope of K is 1 over 5 and they're parallel. So that's it. We are done. It's as easy as that. But yeah, it took us like 10 seconds if I wasn't explaining it. But yeah, question number 17. This expression over here, so it's kind of, I can already see things that you can simplify, is equivalent to cx to the power of d, where c and d are constants and x is greater than 0. What is the value of c plus d? Okay, so first thing we gotta do is convert this fraction to look like this. So you might think, okay, this is already difficult, I don't know what to do, all that. But if you think about it enough, you can already see what to do because you just need to simplify it. In your answer that you want, you need one term of x. In this case, we have 2, so we have to simplify that somehow. And then we also need one constant. In this case, we have 2, so we have to simplify that somehow as well. So first, let's simplify the constants. 32 divided by 4, you should know this. 32 divided by 4 is 8. Pretty simple so far. Okay, and then x to the power of 6 divided by x to the power of 3. Once again, super simple. You should know this if you're doing an SAT. But this would be x to the power of 6 minus 3, which is equal to x to the power of 3. And just add the 8 there. So that's it. We found the format that we need. we know that C is equal to 8 and D is equal to 3. And then C plus D is equal to 8 plus 3, which is equal to 11. So super easy, super simple. Once you notice that, you can simplify. There are, like, if you notice, for all these questions, there are just tricks that if you notice, they're like easy to solve, but you have to notice them, and that comes by practice. You cannot get that from the sky. You have to practice, because that's the only way I saw simplifying in here. Okay, but yeah, question number 18, kind of simple again. This time you have to just solve for h. Pretty simple. It's an algebra question like you've seen all your life, basically. You just have to solve for h. So how do you do that? You multiply 2.1, you expand this basically. So 2.1 times h is 2.1h, and then 2.1 times 3, this is mildly difficult, but not really. So 3 times 2 is 6, and then 3 times 1 is 3. We can do this because none of them are greater than 10. So is equal to 3h plus 2.1. Okay, after that, solve for h. Once again, pretty simple. Let's subtract 2.1h from both sides. So minus 2.1h minus 2.1h. This will give us, this goes away. And then it'll give us 6.3 is equal to 0.9h plus 2.1. And then subtract 2.1 from both sides. This will go away as well. And then 6.3 minus 2.1 is 4.2. So 4.2 is equal to 0.9h. And then if you solve for h is equal to 4.2 over 0.9. Okay. And this is, I guess, a good answer, but I don't know what they want for the SAT. So usually I would simplify my answer and keep it as a nice number. So first, let's multiply top and bottom by 10 to get rid of the decimal. This would be 42 over 9. After that, let's simplify. You can divide top and bottom by 3. So divide by 3, divide by 3. This will give you 14 over 3. And that is your final answer. Once again, I don't know if they would accept the first answer, but it's usually nice to keep it as a simplified answer. If you don't have time, then it's okay. Leave it. Come back to it later. But it's usually nice to simplify your answer and keep it that way. Okay. Question number 19. A cylinder and a sphere both have the same radius r, where r is greater than 0. The cylinder has a height of 16, so that's going to be useful. The volume of the sphere is half the volume of the cylinder. That's also very useful because it gives us a relationship between both volumes. And you have to find what the value of r is. Okay, so the volume of a sphere first. This is given in the formal sheet on the front of your SAT, but the volume is equal to 4 over 3 pi r cubed. I memorized it because I've done it so much, but once again, you don't have to memorize it. It's on the front page of the SAT, so that's how you can get it. That's the volume of a sphere. Volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h. Once again, it's on the front page of the SAT. Now let's solve a couple things. We know that the height of the cylinder is 16. That's given to us. So this is equal to pi r squared times 16. And then for the volume of the sphere, this is going to be half the volume of the cylinder. So we know that if you multiply the volume of the cylinder by 1 over 2, half it, you're going to get the volume of the sphere. Let's actually solve that now. So 1/2 times pi r squared times 16, like this, is equal to 4 over 3 pi r cubed. Okay, a couple things to notice. First, there's a pi on both sides. Let's simplify that, get rid of pi. We can divide both sides by r squared because we don't like that many r's. We are going to have 1/2 times 16 is equal to 4 over 3r. So once again, this r went away because r squared over r squared just goes away. It's 1. And then r cubed divided by r squared is r. Okay, so that's pretty simple. And then 1/2 times 16 is 8. And then is equal to 4 over 3r. And then to find r, you have to do 8 divided by 4 over 3. And then from here, it's pretty simple once again. This will be 8 times 3 over 4. And then this is equal to 24 over 4, which is 6. So that is your answer, which is r. One more thing, this is something you have to notice here. But in this question, they did not give you a unit. If they said something like the height of the cylinder is 16 centimeters, then your answer would have to be in centimeters. It's a very subtle thing they might do, but it might also be rare. I don't know how the SAT person writes the questions, but yeah, so watch out for the units. If it's given, then write a unit, but in this case we did not have a unit, so the answer of 6 is correct. We are done. And last question, question number 20, we have a quadratic like we always do, and then it says in the given equation, b and c are constants. If negative b plus the square root of b squared minus 4c is 18, and negative b minus square root of b squared minus 4c is 10, what is one possible value of x? Okay, once again, this is kind of one of those experience questions I was talking about, but the only way you can solve this is to notice that both of these are parts of the quadratic formula. So this and this. If you memorize it, which you should, so minus b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. This is the quadratic formula, and we got two parts of it. We also know that a, in this case, is 1 because they didn't write an a, and we kind of don't see anything here, so we know that it's 1. That means we can get rid of this a and this a. So this is the exact same as negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4c over 2. Okay, now if you notice, this numerator is what we have over here. So that numerator can either be 18 or 10, because that's what we have here, 10 or 18. Those are both of the values. So now you might ask, okay, what's the final step? Final step is just divide by 2, because we already know the numerator, it's one of them, and dividing by 2 will give us the answer. So 18 divided by 2 is 9, and and then 10 divided by 2 is 5. So that's it for both. The question said, what is one possible value for x? So you can just give either of these answers, you don't have to give both. But yeah, that's it for this video. The next video is going to be me going over the calculator version of this, so the calculator section of the SAT, but it should also be pretty simple, and I'll go through every question like I did here. But yeah, in the description you're going to find links for the rationalizing video that I told you I would give. But yeah, so that's it, and yeah, have a nice day.